The air in the press conference room was thick, not just with cigarette smoke and flashbulb ozone, but with an almost electric anticipation. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, sat at a long polished table, a dozen microphones angled towards his lips, like hungry metallic birds. His hair, a perfectly sculpted raven wave, caught the glare of the television lights, making it seem almost impossibly dark. He wore a crisp-tailored suit, not one of his wilder stage outfits, but something sharp and expensive, a testament to his undeniable star power. He'd been doing this for years. Now, press conferences, interviews, each one felt a little more exhausting than the last. "Elvis, how do you handle the fame?" "Mr. Presley, what's next for your career? Are the rumors about your love life true?" He answered them with a practiced charm, a smooth smile, and that slight, drawling accent that could melt butter. He was a professional through and through, but even the king got tired of the crown sometimes. Today was no different. He'd just finished a string of hugely successful shows, breaking attendance records, left and right. His latest single was topping the charts, and a new movie was about to hit theaters. Life was a whirlwind of music, movies, and screaming fans. It was everything he'd ever dreamed of, and more. But sometimes, when the cameras were off and the crowds had gone home, a quiet weariness would settle over him. He missed the simple days in Memphis before the world knew his name, before every move, every word, every twitch of an eyebrow was analyzed, debated, and printed in 1,000 newspapers. He shifted slightly in his seat, the leather creaking softly. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, a man as shrewd as he was portly, sat beside him, his eyes scanning the room, like a hawk ready to deflect any question he deemed inappropriate. Behind them, security guards stood sentinel, their arms crossed, their expressions unreadable. The room was packed. A sea of eager faces, notebooks poised, cameras flashing. Reporters from every major newspaper, every radio station, every television network were here. They wanted a soundbite, a headline, a piece of the Elvis magic to take back to their readers and listeners. Elvis took a sip of water, the ice clinking against the glass. He felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple. Despite the air conditioning, it wasn't the heat. It was the prayer. Constant need to be on, to be the Elvis everyone expected. The charming, confident, effortlessly cool superstar. And he was all those things, truly. But he was also a man with feelings, with moments of doubt, with a desire for just a little bit of quiet. A reporter from the back, a tall older man with a booming voice, just finished asking about his upcoming film. Elvis gave his standard enthusiast answer about how much he enjoyed working with the cast and crew, about how different this role was. He made it sound genuine because in many ways, he did love her. Then in any, she had a mop of curly brown hair and glasses that kept slipping down her nose. Her name tag read, Brenda Hayes, the Daily Spotlight. Elvis had seen her before at a few events, usually quiet, jotting notes furiously. She was new to the big league, clearly trying to make her mark. A murmur went through the room as she was called upon by the moderator. All eyes turned to her, a welcoming, reassuring gesture. He remembered being new, being nervous. He knew what it was like to feel that pressure. He nodded, inviting her to ask her question. He expected something about his favorite color, or his diet, or maybe his plans for Christmas, something easy. Something that wouldn't require too much thought. Just another polished answer from the well-oiled machine that was Elvis Presley, superstar. He leaned closer to the microphones, adjusting the collar of his suit jacket. The silence in the room was almost deafening, broken only by the hum of the overhead lights and the soft clicks of cameras. Brenda took a deep breath, adjusted her glasses, and met his gaze. Her eyes, usually darting nervously, held a flicker of intense concentration, almost defiance. This wasn't going to be a simple question, he suddenly realized. A knot formed in his stomach. He braced himself. He'd face screaming fans, angry critics, and the glare of millions of lights. But a truly unexpected question, one that made him pause and think, those were the ones that could throw him off. And Brenda Hayes, with her shaky voice and determined stare, looked like she was about to deliver just that. The anticipation in the room tightened, palpable and heavy. Everyone leaned forward, sensing something different was about to happen. Even Colonel Parker seemed to stiffen beside him. This wasn't going to be just another press conference. Something was about to change the rhythm of the day and perhaps even the legend. Brenda Hayes swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. She could feel the weight of 100 eyes on her, but most of all, she felt the piercing gaze of Elvis Presley himself. His smile was kind, but it was also expectant. She had practiced this question 100 times in her head, refining it, trying to make it sound intelligent, even groundering. But now, in the glare of the lights, with the king just feet away, it sounded incredibly well done. Her editor, Mr. Peterson, had practically dared her. "Brenda," he'd grumbled, chewing on his unlit cigar, "everyone asks about his music, his movies, his girlfriends. Nobody asks why it all happens. Go deeper. Ask him about the phenomenon." Brenda, fresh out of journalism school and desperate to prove herself, had taken the challenge to heart. She wanted to stand out, to get a headline that wasn't just a rehash of everyone else's. So she took another shaky breath, and in a voice that was surprisingly clear despite her nerves, she asked the question that would echo through the room and eventually through history. "Mr. Presley," she began, her eyes fixed on his, trying to read his expression. "You're known for your incredible stage presence, your movements, your energy. They cause an unparalleled reaction, particularly among women. There are a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation. Some people even say it's calculated." Even Colonel Parker seemed to lean forward, a wary look on his face. This was definitely not a standard question. Brenda pushed on, her voice gaining a strange confidence, a mix of sheer terror and determination. "Can you explain scientifically, Mr. Presley, why women react the way they do when you perform? Is there a method to it? A biological trigger you discovered?" A hush fell over the room, so profound you could almost hear the individual cameras clicking. The question hung in the air, a strange, awkward, and undeniably dumb query in its scientific framing. Why, indeed, did women scream? Why did they swoon? It was a question asked by millions, but never in quite that way, never with the demand for a scientific explanation from the man himself. A few muffled snickers broke the silence from the back rows, quickly hushed. By glares from more seasoned reporters, Colonel Parker's face, usually impassive, twitched. He opened his mouth, no doubt to step in and dismiss the question as absurd. But Elvis, to everyone's surprise, held up a hand, a slight, almost imperceptible gesture that told his manager to wait. Elvis didn't react immediately. His famous smile faded, replaced by an unreadable expression. He didn't look angry, or even particularly annoyed. He looked thoughtful. His gaze was still fixed on Brenda, but it seemed to go right through her as if he were seeing something beyond the question, beyond the room. He seemed to be weighing the words, letting them sink in, considering them. From every angle, Brenda felt a flush creep up her neck. Oh, she'd done it now. She'd made a fool of herself. She'd probably ruined her fledgling career. Every second felt like an hour. She wanted to disappear under the table, to melt into the floor, to be anywhere but sitting in front of Elvis Presley, having just asked him the most ridiculous question of his career. She saw a few reporters whispering, some shaking their heads. She imagined the headlines. "Rookie reporter asks king for science of swooning." Or worse, "Elvis stunned by foolish query." Her carefully constructed plan to be groundbreaking had backfired spectacularly. She could already hear Mr. Peterson's booming laughter. Elvis finally broke the silence, not with a word, but with a soft, almost imperceptible sigh. It wasn't a sigh of exasperation, but one of something deeper, maybe a touch of weariness, maybe a touch of amusement. He shifted again, leaning back slightly, giving himself a moment. The flashbulbs continued to pop, capturing his pensive expression, a look rarely seen by the public. Brenda squeezed her notepad so tightly, her knuckles turned white. This was it. He was going to politely, or perhaps not so politely, dismiss her. He'd probably make a joke. Everyone would laugh, and she would be forever known as the girl who asked Elvis about science. Her face burned. She felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, a mix of embarrassment and crushing disappointment. She had tried too hard, gone too far. She had mistaken audacity for brilliance. But as she watched him, she noticed something. There was a tiny flicker in his eyes, a glint of something that wasn't anger, wasn't boredom, but recognition, as if somehow her ill-phrased, ambitious question had touched upon something he had thought about before, something beyond the surface-level fame he was about to answer. And the room, now completely silent, waited with bated breath. The silence was a living thing, thick and heavy, pressing down on everyone in the room. For Brenda, it was agony. For the other reporters, it was gold, a moment of raw, unscripted Elvis. For Elvis himself, it was a rare pocket of quiet in his otherwise deafening world. He took it, letting the dumb question about the science's swooning hang there, not dismissing it, not answering it, but simply holding it in his mind. He looked at Brenda, really looked at her. He saw the flush on her cheeks, the frantic grip on her notepad, the desperate hope mixed with profound embarrassment in her eyes. She wasn't trying to be malicious. She was trying to be something. He recognized that struggle. He'd been there himself, trying to prove he was more than just a truck driver with a guitar. His mind drifted back, not just minutes, but years, to the early days when his music was deemed scandalous, his moves called vulgar. People had tried to scientifically explain him then, too often in negative terms. They tried to dissect his appeal, reduce it to something controllable, something definable, something that could be either approved or condemned. But it wasn't scientific, it was raw, it was feeling, it was rock and roll. He thought of the crowds, a blur of faces, a roar of sound that filled him up and sometimes paradoxically emptied him out. He thought of the women in the front rows, their eyes wide, tears streaming, hands reaching out. Was it his hips, his voice? The way he tilted his head? He'd never tried to calculate any of it. It just happened. It poured out of him when he sang, when he moved. It was an instinct, a connection. Question was dumb in its phrasing. Yes, but it pointed to something real, something nobody could ever truly explain. It cut through the usual fluff about record sales and movie scripts and touched on the core mystery of his appeal, and in a way he appreciated that. It was refreshing, even if it was clumsily put. He let out another slow breath, this one more of a thoughtful release than a sigh of weariness. He could give a stock answer, he could laugh it off. Colonel Parker would certainly prefer that. But something about Brenda's earnest, trembling demeanor and the sheer audacity of her question made him want to do something different. He wanted to give an answer that was as honest as it was witty, an answer that showed he was more than just a performer, more than just a product. He was a man who understood the magic he created, even if he couldn't bottle it. He thought of his mama and how she'd always told him to be true to himself. He thought of Sam Phillips, who first told him to sing like nobody else. He thought of the raw energy of the blues, the spiritual power of gospel. None of that could be dissected in a lab. It was soul, it was spirit, it was passion. He brought his gaze back to Brenda, and a tiny, almost imperceptible smile began to form on his lips. It wasn't the dazzling cameras-on smile, but a softer, more genuine one. A mischievous glint appeared in his eyes. He knew exactly what he was going to say. He was going to take her dumb question and turn it into something memorable, something that would not only answer her, but also remind everyone. In the room of nature, their Paul Mature. The other reporters looked from Brenda to Elvis' mouths, slightly agape. Notebooks still poised, they knew instinctively that this was a moment, a turning point in a standard press conference. They leaned in, straining to catch every sound. Elvis took another sip of water, allowing the anticipation to build just a little more. He set the glass down with a soft clink. Then he leaned forward, closer to the microphones, his eyes still holding that mischievous glint. He looked directly at Brenda, and then slowly he scanned the faces of the other reporters, almost as if he was inviting them on to a private joke. King was about to speak, and everyone knew deep down it wouldn't be just any answer. It would be an answer for the ages. The moment stretched, electric and buzzing. Every camera was focused, every ear strained. Elvis had finished his long, thoughtful pause, and now that familiar, charming smile had returned to his face, but it held a new depth, a knowing glint. He leaned into the microphones, his voice a low, smooth drawl, perfectly pitched for the room. He looked directly at Brenda, who was still frozen in mortified anticipation. His gaze was gentle, discerning. "Ma'am," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying clearly throughout the silent room. "That's a mighty interesting question you got there." A ripple of quiet chuckles spread through the room, but they were not mocking, they were curious. He paused just for a second, letting the words sink in. Then he straightened up a little, his eyes twinkling. "And if I could explain the science behind it," he continued, his voice rising just a touch, the humor now clear, "well, I reckon I wouldn't be standing here singing and shaking for y'all." Another pause, perfectly timed. A few more reporters let out soft laughs. Colonel Parker, who had been on the verge of intervening, now had a strange, almost proud smile creeping onto his face. This was pure Elvis. Then came the kicker, the line that would forever be etched into the minds of fans and critics alike. Elvis spread his hands out slightly, a gesture of humble surrender, mixed with undeniable charisma. "No, ma'am," he said, his smile widening, completely captivating. "If I knew the answer to that, I'd bottle it and sell it. I'd be a richer man than I already am, and I'd be selling it as a cure for boredom to every soul on earth." The room erupted. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was a burst of genuine, uninhibited laughter. Reporters slapped their knees. Some even stood up cheering. Flashbulbs went off like a relentless summer storm. The sheer wit, the unexpected humility, the classic Elvis charm, it all hit at once. He had taken Brenda's awkward, dumb question and turned it into a moment of pure gold. Brenda, who had been braced for humiliation, felt a strange mix of shock and exhilaration. Her face was still hot, but now it was from a different kind of flush. A mix of relief and awe. He hadn't dismissed her. He hadn't mocked her. He had taken her clumsy question and elevated it, making it into something universally relatable and utterly charming. He had made her question part of his legend. Elvis let the laughter and applause subside, soaking it in, clearly enjoying the moment. He winked first at Brenda, then at a few of the other reporters he recognized. "But to be serious for a moment, ma'am," he added, his voice softening, a note of genuine warmth entering his tone, "I reckon it ain't science at all. It's just the good Lord giving me a bit of rhythm, and folks enjoying." Even more vigorous this time, it was the perfect ending. He attributed his talent to something higher, to the music itself, and to the joy it brought people. He demystified it while simultaneously cementing its magical quality. He made it about connection, not calculation. Press conference continued, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The initial tension had dissolved into a warm, buzzing energy. Subsequent questions were lighter, more respectful. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something special. A spontaneous moment of genius from the king himself. They had come for headlines, and Elvis had given them a legend. Colonel Parker leaned over to Elvis, a wide grin on his face. "Well, boy," he muttered, his voice full of satisfaction, "you just sold 1,000,000 more records with that one line." Elvis just chuckled. A relaxed, easy sound. He didn't do it for the records, not really. He did it because, in that moment, he felt a genuine connection, not just with Brenda, but with every person in that room, and with every fan who would later hear his legendary retort. He had shared a piece of himself, and it felt good. It felt real. As the conference began to wind down, Brenda, still slightly dazed, managed to scribble down his exact words. Her initial embarrassment was replaced by a surge of journalistic triumph. She hadn't gotten the scientific answer, but she had gotten something far, far better. She had gotten a piece of Elvis's soul delivered with wit and grace, and she knew with absolute certainty that this would be the biggest story of her career. The legend of Elvis's witty answer was born. The moment Elvis delivered his legendary retort, it was as if a tiny, powerful explosion had gone off in a press room. Within hours, the words were flashing across wire surfaces, hitting newspaper desks across the country. By the next morning, headlines screamed, "Elvis offers cure for boredom. King's witty comeback charms press. No science, just soul, says Elvis." Brenda Hayes' initial embarrassment had evaporated, replaced by a giddy disbelief. Her editor, Mr. Peterson, usually a gruff, cigar-chomping cynic, had called her into his office, not to scold, but to praise. His eyes, usually narrowed, were wide with an almost childlike excitement. "Brenda, my dear Brenda," he'd bellowed, slapping her on the back so hard she nearly stumbled. "You did it. You got the quote of the decade. This is front-page stuff, kid, pure gold." Brenda's article detailing the entire exchange, her nervous question, Elvis's thoughtful pause, and his brilliant, heartwarming reply was picked up by major newspapers from New York to Los Angeles. Radio stations played clips of his smooth voice repeating the line, "If I knew the answer to that, I'd bottle it and sell it." It became an instant classic, quoted in barbershops, diner booths, and office water coolers. What made it legendary wasn't just the wit, but the humility and genuine warmth behind it. In an era where celebrities often seemed untouchable, Elvis had shown a vulnerability, a self-awareness that was incredibly endearing. He hadn't gotten defensive or angry about a seemingly foolish question. Instead, he'd embraced it, using it as an opportunity to reveal more of his true self. He wasn't just a performer, he was a human being with a sharp mind and a kind heart. The reaction from the public was immediate and overwhelming. Fans loved it. They saw it as proof that their king was not only talented and handsome, but also intelligent and down-to-earth. The story reinforced their deep connection to him. It wasn't just about the music anymore, it was about the man. Women swooned even harder, realizing that behind the iconic swagger was a man who didn't take himself too seriously, but took his craft and his connection with his fans very seriously indeed. Record Store saw another surge in sales, as if people needed to hear the music from the man who could deliver such a brilliant line. His movies, already popular, garnered even more buzz. The dumb question and the legendary answer became a cornerstone of Elvis's public image. Adding another layer to his already complex persona, it showed he was a thinker, not just a showman. Even critics, often quick to dissect and diminish, found themselves charmed. They might have debated his music or his acting, but few could deny the undeniable charisma and quick wit displayed in that press conference. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated star power, demonstrated not through song or dance, but through the spoken word. Colonel Parker, ever the shrewd businessman, knew a good thing when he saw it. He subtly encouraged interviewers to bring up the quote, knowing it would generate even more positive buzz. He even hinted at possible merchandise, ideas half-jokingly suggesting they could literally bottle Elvis's cure for boredom. But deep down, even he knew the true value of the moment wasn't in the potential for profit, but in the deepened connection it forged between Elvis and his audience. For Elvis himself, the immediate aftermath felt like a breath of fresh air. He was tired of the constant scrutiny, but this time the scrutiny was different. It was positive. It was about his character, not just his fame. People weren't just screaming at his concerts, they were talking about his cleverness, his humor. It felt more personal, more real. He imagined Brenda, the young reporter, probably basking in the glow of her unexpected success. He hoped she was. She had, however, unknowingly given him a gift. She had given him the opportunity to show a different side of himself, a side that often got lost in the blinding flash of the spotlights. And as the days turned into weeks and the buzz continued to grow, Elvis knew that this wasn't just a fleeting headline. This was something that would live on, woven into the very fabric of his legend. It was a small, quiet moment that had somehow amplified his voice beyond the music, making him even more beloved, even more enduring. Brenda Hayes felt like she was living in a dream, or perhaps a whirlwind. The day after her article hit the wires, her phone hadn't stopped ringing. Other newspapers wanted to syndicate her piece. Radio stations wanted her on air to talk about the moment. She even got an offer from a national magazine to write a follow-up. Her editor, Mr. Peterson, had given her a permanent spot on the entertainment desk. A major promotion for a cub reporter. Her initial humiliation had vanished, replaced by a surge of dizzying triumph. She was no longer Brenda, the nervous rookie. She was Brenda Hayes, the reporter who got the legendary Elvis quote. Her name, once buried in the bylines, was now being celebrated. She was being invited to events she could only have dreamed of attending before. But amidst the excitement, Brenda felt a strange mix of emotions. There was relief, of course, that she hadn't ruined her career. There was pride that her story had captured the public's imagination. But there was also a profound sense of gratitude towards Elvis. He hadn't just answered her question. He had, in a way, rescued her. He could have shut her down, made her a laughingstock. Instead, he had elevated her, turning her mistake into a triumph. She reread her article countless times, focusing on his words, on the warmth in his eyes when he spoke. She remembered the genuine, uncalculated smile. It wasn't the showman's grin. It was the smile of a real person, amused and in cheek. She realized that her dumb question had by sheer accident opened a door to a side of Elvis that the public rarely saw. She had seen the human beneath the legend. One afternoon, a week or so after the press conference, a large bouquet of wildflowers arrived at the Daily Spotlight office. Tucked among the blossoms was a small card. Brenda's name was written on it in elegant cursive. Her heart pounded as she opened it. To Brenda Hayes for asking a question that made me think and for helping me share a little more of myself. Keep asking the good ones. Sincerely, Elvis P. A wave of warmth washed over Brenda. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a quiet, thoughtful one. It confirmed what she had felt in that room. He was a kind man, generous of spirit. It wasn't just about the legend. It was about the genuine connection. The flowers sat on her desk, a constant reminder of the day. Her career changed, and her view of celebrity deepened. She found herself thinking about the pressures Elvis must face every day. Constant demands, the endless questions, the need to always be on. Her clumsy question, in its own way, had provided a brief respite from the usual script, a chance for him to respond in a way that felt authentic to him. She felt a newfound respect for him, not just as an artist, but as a person navigating an extraordinary life. Brenda began to approach her work with a different perspective. She still sought out headlines, but now she also looked for the human story, the unexpected angle, the moments where people revealed their true selves. She realized that sometimes the most deceitful questions weren't the ones designed to trap or expose, but the ones that, however awkwardly phrased, allowed for genuine reflection and connection. Her career soared. She was no longer just a local reporter. She was building a reputation as someone who could capture the essence of a moment, the heart of a story. She covered more celebrity events, but she always looked for the Elvis moment, that spark of authenticity that cut through the glitz and glamour. She never forgot the lesson learned from the king of rock and roll, that a simple, honest answer could resonate more deeply than any carefully crafted statement, and that sometimes the dumb questions were the ones that truly made people think. And it was all thanks to one honest, witty answer that changed everything. The buzz around Elvis's witty answer wasn't just a fleeting media sensation. It burrowed deep into the hearts of his fans. They weren't just buying records, they were buying into the legend, and this moment amplified that connection tenfold. For them, it was more than just a clever retort. It was a reaffirmation of everything they loved about Elvis. Fan clubs, already buzzing with activity, went into overdrive. Newsletters printed the full transcript of the exchange, often with enthusiastic exclamation points. Teenagers plastered the quote on their bedroom walls alongside pictures of their idol. Older fans who admired his talent but perhaps sometimes worried about the wildness of rock and roll found a new reason to respect him. He was charming, yes, but also humble and grounded. Letters poured into RCA Victor and to Graceland filled with praise not just for his music, but for his character. "Dear Mr. Presley," one fan wrote from Iowa, "your answer to that reporter was just wonderful. It showed you're a real gentleman, and you understand us regular folks." Another from Texas simply said, "Elvis, you truly are the king of quick wits and good hearts." The "bottle it and sell it" line became a fan slogan. Concerts, handmade signs appeared in the audience. Some reading, "Bottle it, Elvis." Others sported cheeky variations. When Elvis would pause between songs, sometimes a brave fan would shout, "What's the secret, Elvis?" And he would often flash that famous grin and quip, "Still working on bottling it, honey." Crowd would roar with delight, feeling like they were part of an inside joke, a shared moment with their idol. This incident did more than just sell records. It humanized Elvis in a way few other moments had. People loved his talent, his looks, his electrifying stage presence. But this showed them his mind, his humor, his good nature. It proved he wasn't just a manufactured idol, but a thoughtful, genuine person beneath the layers of fame. For mothers who worried about their daughters' obsession with the hip-shaking star, the quote offered reassurance. It showed that Elvis saw the humor in the frenzy, that he didn't take himself too seriously, and that he acknowledged a higher power in his talent. It helped bridge the gap between generations, making him more palatable to those who initially viewed rock and roll with suspicion. In a way, Brenda's dumb question had allowed Elvis to articulate something profound about his connection with his audience. It wasn't a trick, it wasn't science. It was an intangible magic, a blend of divine gift and raw, human energy. And his fans understood that intuitively. They felt it in their bones when they heard his voice, when they saw him move. His answer simply put words to that feeling, validating their own experience. The incident became a favorite anecdote in fan lore, passed down through generations. Grandparents would tell their grandchildren about the time Elvis outwitted a reporter with a single brilliant line. It was a story that exemplified his charm, his intelligence, and his unique ability to connect with people on a deeply personal level, even amidst the chaos of superstardom. This widespread, heartfelt embrace of his witty answer touched Elvis deeply. He saw the letters, heard the shouts from the crowd. It wasn't just the Colonel's clever marketing, it was real, genuine affection. It reminded him that despite the grueling schedule and the constant demands, there was a profound love and understanding from his audience. It was a heartwarming reminder of why he did what he did, to bring joy, to connect, and to share a little bit of that unexplainable magic with the world. Later that night, back in the quiet luxury of his hotel suite, far from the flashing lights and roaring crowds, Elvis sat alone. The room was dark, save for a single lamp casting soft shadows across the plush furniture. He held a cup of warm milk, something his mama used to give him when he couldn't sleep. He finally had a moment to himself, a chance to process the day. Especially that moment. He wasn't a professor. He was just Elvis, a boy from Tupelo, who loved to sing, but he understood what she was getting at. People wanted to dissect him, to understand the phenomenon, to put a label on the magic. And sometimes he wondered about it himself. Why did it happen? Why him? Why did his music, his voice, his moves stir such a powerful reaction in millions of people? His answer had been spontaneous, born of a moment of genuine amusement and a desire to be honest. Without being rude, he hadn't thought about headlines or record sales. He'd just thought about what felt true, and what felt true was that it wasn't science. It was something deeper, something. He thought about the roaring crowds, the way the energy pulsed between him and them. It was a give and take, a shared experience. When he performed, he poured his heart and soul into every note, every movement. He gave everything he had, and in return the audience gave back their raw emotion, their screams, their tears, their adoration. It was a powerful, almost overwhelming exchange. He sometimes worried that people only saw the glitter, the fame, the endless entourage. He worried they didn't see the real him, the boy who still felt nervous before a show, who still called his mama every day, who still loved gospel music more than anything. His witty answer, in a strange way, had cut through some of that. It had shown them a glimpse of the man behind the myth. A man who could laugh at himself, who acknowledged his blessings, and who believed in something more than just showmanship. The thought of the flowers he'd sent Brenda brought another small smile to his face. He hoped she understood the gesture. It wasn't pity, it was respect. She had, however, inadvertently allowed him a moment of genuine connection in a world often dominated by artificiality. She had given him a chance to show his humanity. He finished his milk and set the cup down. It was in these moments of solitude that he could truly reflect on his extraordinary life. The answer he'd given that day, it wasn't just a quip. It was a distillation of his philosophy, a simple truth about the inexplicable nature of passion, talent, and connection. It wasn't about formulas or equations, it was about heart, soul, and a whole lot of rock and roll. And as he finally drifted off to sleep, a rare sense of peace settled over him. He knew that in a world that constantly tried to define him, he had for a moment defined himself, and it felt good. As the years passed, Elvis Presley's career continued its unprecedented ascent. But amidst the new albums, blockbuster movies, and sold-out Vegas residencies, that single seemingly small moment at the press conference continued to resonate, growing in significance and charm. The dumb question and the witty answer became more than just a famous quote. It became a defining characteristic of Elvis's public persona, etched into the very fabric of his legend. It was quoted in biographies, mentioned in documentaries, and recalled by fellow musicians and celebrities whenever they spoke of Elvis's charisma. People who had never even been born when the event happened knew the story. It became a beloved anecdote, proving that Elvis was not just a performer of immense talent, but also a man of remarkable intelligence and quick wit. Journalists often referred to it as the Hayes incident, though always with a fond, respectful tone. Brenda Hayes herself continued to have a successful career, often introduced as the reporter who interviewed Elvis that one time. She rarely spoke of it publicly, preferring to let the story stand on its own, but privately it remained a cherished memory, a moment of profound personal and professional impact. She had in a way contributed to the legend, and in turn the legend had shaped her path. Quote, transcended generations, becoming a cultural touchstone. When people talked about the inexplicable power of music or the intangible quality of charisma, Elvis's retort would often be invoked. "You can't bottle it," became a shorthand for something magical, something that defied logical explanation. It wasn't just fans who kept the story alive. Other musicians, especially those who admired Elvis, often cited the quote as an example of his genius. Not just on stage, but off. They saw in it a recognition of the mysterious bond between artist and audience, a bond that couldn't be manufactured or scientifically remoted. It was about raw talent, passion, and a connection that went deeper than words. Looking back, it became clear that the moment had served a crucial purpose in Elvis's public narrative. At a time when rock and roll was still new and sometimes feared, and Elvis himself was often misunderstood, his witty, self-deprecating yet profound answer allowed the public to see him not just as a cultural force, but as a warm, approachable individual. It rounded out his image, adding depth to the dazzling showman. It was a testament to his innate ability to connect, to charm, and to resonate. His entire career was built on breaking barriers, and in that press conference he broke another one. The barrier between a superstar and genuine human connection. He showed that even amidst the flashing lights and the absurd questions, authenticity could shine through. The memory of the moment remained vivid for those who were there. The way the room had gone silent, the anticipation, the burst of laughter, and the collective feeling of witnessing something truly special. It wasn't just a story, It was an experience, and it confirmed what so many already believed. Elvis Presley was truly one of a kind. His legend, already massive, had gained another unforgettable, heartwarming chapter. Years turned into decades. Elvis Presley became an immortal icon, his music echoing through time, his image instantly recognizable. But even after his passing, the story of the dumb question and the witty answer continued to be told, proving that true legendary moments are not always found on grand stages or in dramatic narratives, but sometimes in a simple, honest retort in a crowded room. Quote, "If I knew the answer to that, I'd bottle it and sell it," became synonymous with Elvis's intelligence, his humor, and his unique ability to connect with people. It was a powerful reminder that his charisma wasn't some scientific formula, but a natural, almost mystical gift, given freely and with joy, spoke to the heart of what made him the king, his genuine spirit. For many, the story served as a heartwarming insight into the man behind the legend. It showed a side of Elvis that was humble, self-aware, and incredibly charming. It allowed fans to feel closer to him, to understand that he wasn't just a distant celebrity, but a person who could laugh at himself, appreciate a good question, even a clumsy one, and express a profound truth with simple words. Cemented his image as someone truly extraordinary yet deeply human. Brenda Hayes, now a respected veteran journalist, occasionally gave interviews about her career. When the Elvis incident came up, she would always smile, a soft, fond look in her eyes. She'd speak of his grace, his unexpected kindness, and how that one moment had not only launched her career, but also taught her a valuable lesson about the power of authenticity. She learned that sometimes the most poignant stories are found not in sensationalism, but in the genuine interactions that reveal character. The enduring message of that moment was clear. True magic cannot be explained by science or contained in a bottle. It is a feeling, an energy, a connection that sparks between people. Elvis, through his music and his very being, exemplified that magic. His witty answer, delivered with a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his lips, captured the essence of his appeal. Raw talent, undeniable charisma, and a profound, effortless ability to touch the human spirit. It was a reminder that even superstars grapple with profound questions, and sometimes the best answers are the simplest, born of honesty and humor. The story underscored Elvis's generosity of spirit, his willingness to engage, and his quiet wisdom. It wasn't just a reporter asking a dumb question and a celebrity giving a witty answer. It was a moment where the king of rock and roll, for a brief, shining instant, showed the world his true, unbottled self. And in doing so, he didn't just create a legendary quote. He reinforced the legendary heart that beat beneath the rhinestones and the spotlights. It was a heartwarming testament to the enduring power of his charm, his wisdom, and the undeniable, unquantifiable magic of Elvis Presley. His legacy wasn't just in the records sold or the concerts played, but in the moments of genuine connection, like the one born from a simple question that continued to resonate through time, a timeless harmony of wit.